Okay, you're good to go.
Welcome everyone to our business today. Today we're pleased to have Catherine Morell and Stephanie Pack from EDC Utah. EDC Utah is the economic development consultant for the city of Spanish Fork, and I believe for Salem as well. Catherine is over community strategy, and Stephanie is on the business development team. We're excited to have you come and talk to us about things that are happening in our area and in our cities. So with that, I'll turn the time over to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it. And it's good to see you guys virtually. Wish we could do this in person, so maybe someday in the future. So EDC Utah, I'm just going to jump right in. We're going to do a quick overview of what our organization does so that you understand us better and how we can better slip into what you guys do, how you can better utilize us. And then Stephanie Pack can actually speak to better specifics of on-the-ground activity. So EDC Utah, we're the Economic Development Corporation of Utah. We have been around for about 30 years. We are a private nonprofit organization, and our main mission is to catalyze quality job growth and increase capital investment all across the state. So we're a state level organization. We specialize in corporate recruitment, economic research, site selector marketing, and community development. And the way that we're funded is most of our funding comes from a state contract, which is from the Governor's Office of Economic Development. And then we also have local governments that pay us, as well as organizations from the private sector. So what that means is we have about 60 public members, and those are cities and counties from across the state. So Spanish Fork is a city that's part of our organization. Salem currently isn't, but oftentimes we help serve everyone within the county. We also have private sector members that is everything from civil engineering to construction to banks to pretty much anyone who feels that their organization could buy into the economic development mission of the state. So with that, since you are a chamber, I know that Salt Lake Chamber is a member of EDC Utah. We also have a couple other chambers, like the African American Chamber, the Asian Chamber, and then I think Chamber South as well are all members of EDC Utah, and they sort of fit into the private sector funding model that we have. So speaking to small businesses, since in the invite it said, speak about what you do, both for larger and smaller businesses. So with small businesses, since we're typically pulled into the process of expanding, relocating, or retaining businesses at the state level, oftentimes we interact with larger businesses. So for example, when the state incentives program gets put into play, it's typically for businesses about 50 people or larger, and Stephanie Pack can speak more to that. So we end up dealing with a lot of larger businesses. So on the smaller business end, we often rely heavily on our partners, both at the Governor's Office of Economic Development, as well as the Salt Lake Chamber. So I've just listed a couple different resources here that we've interacted with. I work on the community strategy side, which means that I work with our public sector members a lot, and these are the people that we typically interface with. So with the Governor's Office, the Salt Lake Chamber, the small business development centers are all across the state, and the Orem one is technically the one that serves the Utah County population. The Procurement Technical Assistance Center, everyone refers to it as PTAC. These are all over the state, and these are all to help small businesses apply for and retain government contracts. And then you also have the Women's Business Center of Utah that has locations all across the state. And with this, the small business centers, the PTAC, as well as Women Business Centers of Utah, all of them have gone virtual. So I feel like interfacing with them and interacting with them has become even easier, which is fantastic because we all know that small businesses are struggling a little bit right now. So with what EDC Utah does, we interact with larger businesses. We also do a lot of primary economic research. So this is a ton of material that you can find on our website. We also do marketing and events. So we market the state to the rest of the nation as well as internationally. That's our main goal, to really attract other, new businesses to come to Utah, as well as retain our current businesses or help them expand within Utah. So we market a lot of that. We also used to hold in-person events. We now do a lot of virtual events that are both for our membership base, those public and private members, as well as attracting new people to come to the state. So, and then with business development, I'm going to turn this over to Stephanie Pack.
Thanks, Catherine.
I'm on the business development team with EDC Utah. I'm a business development manager, and my role specifically is to be a project manager for some of these clients that come and are looking at expanding their business or relocating their business here in the state. Each of us on the business development team, we try to have industry focus, and that way, we can provide some industry expertise into our project management. I work specifically within the outdoor product as well as the energy industry. However, I manage mostly projects within the manufacturing and industrial space. This plays really well into some of the work that we've done specifically within Spanish Fork and the Salem area. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. Basically, what we try to do is we support the clients that are coming in to look at Utah. We also provide some community and company relationship management. We rely really heavily on our community partnerships to help us identify communities and real estate that can fit the client's needs. And so we end up interfacing really in depth with the communities that we work with to help support them. And then our global strategy and outreach program is our proactive outreach program. And this is head up by our Vice President of Business Development, Colby Cooley. And this is, as Catherine mentioned, this is our way of reaching out to businesses in a proactive way to recruit them to the state, to learn more about investing in Utah and what Utah has to offer. And so this is a really good lead generation tool. We thankfully don't have to rely super heavily on it. Utah is a fantastic place to do business. And so we often get a lot of outreach straight to our office from companies that are looking to learn more. And so most of the projects that we work on derive from companies and site consultants nationwide that are, as well as worldwide, that are looking at Utah for expansion. Go ahead and change the slide there, Catherine. So this is a really helpful graph to kind of demonstrate the process of a project that comes in. As I mentioned, we have a variety of ways these projects come into our pipeline. Some of them come through national consultants known as site selectors, and they often bring in a lot of projects that we work on. We also get a lot of company direct requests that we can work on as well. Through our own processes internally, through those marketing and research efforts, we participate in trade shows, site selector events, targeted global strategy and outreach missions, as well as press and promotions to keep that pipeline moving forward. Once we get a project in, we often follow up with an RFI. And the RFI process is where we reach out to our community and our private partners to identify some of the needs that the company has, be it needs for specific kinds of labor, real estate, different types of utility infrastructure or land infrastructure that they're looking for. We can provide some RFI services to help identify the areas and the communities that can meet their needs. Once we go through that process, we will often conduct site visits. The clients will come into the market and identify some real estate or identify partners that can help them in their mission. The main goal of this whole process is to help our clients understand and learn more about Utah. We often like to say that we are less of a sales organization and more of an education organization. We want to make sure that these companies that are looking at Utah can make a data-driven decision, an informed decision, and ultimately a decision that'll be mutually beneficial for the community that they move into, as well as for their own business model. Through that, they can go into a state incentive process or a local incentive process. We can go into that a little bit offline, but that kind of gives you a large overview of what our project process looks like. This is an example of what an RFI, or a request for information, looks like from our office. This is our way of gathering that detail and that information that the client needs in order to make an informed decision about moving here to the state. They really vary depending on the types of detail that they are requesting. Recently, we've received some very robust and detailed requests for information. And we really get into the weeds in terms of, what is there in terms of infrastructure, and trying to identify the perfect place for them to land. And we rely, as I mentioned, really heavily on our community partners to help us gather this information and organize it in a way that is attractive and digestible for our clients. We send these to the local communities within our network to allow us to expand our understanding of where the state is. We are unique in that most economic development organizations are regionally based. Utah, our office is a statewide organization, which is fairly unique. And our RFI process really facilitates our ability to be able to market the entire state. So these are a few of the projects that we have sent information on your region. And these, as you can see, they have very large capital investment that they are looking to put into the state, very large job counts. Most of these were submitted at the Spanish Springs Industrial Park that is marketed by Colliers International. That is a really awesome asset that your community has that we like to tout to the companies that are looking at Utah. Most of these projects are either on hold or have since been closed. But it's a really awesome way for us to be able to put communities in front of these customers so they can learn a little bit more. Most of these projects, in fact, I believe all of these projects are site selector led projects. And to get this particular real estate, this particular community in front of those site selectors nationally is really beneficial, since they work on these kinds of projects all the time. If you have any questions about any of these projects, I'd be happy to give you an update or tell you a little bit more about what we learned from these projects. But in all of these instances, the Spanish Springs Industrial Park was a really great submission.
I have a question. Can you tell us where the Spanish Springs Industrial Park is? I'm not familiar with that. I think of everything going on with Canyon Creek, but I don't know that I can think of where that is.
Oh, you know what? I might have to pull up a map. Let me see.
Does anybody else know?
Aaron, it may be over by where Tim Daly Ford is, where they're looking at developing that new on and off ramp from the freeway.
Stephanie, you can look that up and I will continue with this part of the presentation. So another part of EDC Utah, since we do run all of these statewide searches for companies to find new locations or expand their locations, we also run what we call the Development Ready Communities Program. So Spanish Fork is a member of EDC Utah, is tied into this program. Salem, if they became a member, they would also be tied into this program. And really it's just 5 stages that we try to run everybody through. That starts with an assessment to figure out, what does your community look like? How has it grown in the past? How do you want to grow in the future? It's very data heavy, and it's a report that we generate internally and then sit down and have a conversation with the community to say, we really want to do proactive economic development with you. We want you to be able to, choose your own path, choose your own future. And rather than having to propose or potentially say yes to anybody who walks in the door saying, hey, we want to locate in this area, to be really selective about how you want to grow and where you want to grow. So that's sort of the first two stages right there with the assessment and the strategic planning. We also do a lot of marketing campaigns, and like Stephanie said, that once you have a piece of your community that's been shown to a site selector, these people run tons of projects that do nationwide searches, and if they are able to recognize that portion of Utah and get out of the mindset of Salt Lake City is the only place in Utah that they recognize, that's really fantastic. That's marketing right there. We also do a lot of online, and we used to do in-person marketing, both attending trade shows as well as bringing site selectors to Utah, since we have a lot of fantastic events, like Sundance or even the national parks that they're super interested in. Stage 4 is something that it's training and preparation, and it's something that is statewide, and it's actually offered to everyone beyond our membership. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then integration and support is the last stage, and that's just continuing to be a partner of EDC Utah and to continually update us with, what are your goals? What are you looking for? How can we best assist you in your economic development to be as proactive as possible? So with the training seminars, we have actually been asked by GOED, the Governor's Office of Economic Development, in our contract with them to offer these trainings statewide to improve communication collaboration between both the state and local efforts. So, overall, it benefits the state to have really educated economic development directors, really educated city councils, planning commissions, everyone like that at the local level, because then it supports the local efforts in doing this. And by supporting the local efforts, we're supporting the overall state mission. So this is a significant amount of time that we invest on the community strategy side. And we bring in everybody from, subject matter experts to state officials to run these trainings with us. Our topics are usually reserved towards corporate recruitment. That's really, that's our main mission. So that's what we talk a lot about, which is site selection. It's about how to market your real estate, how to prepare your real estate, incentives, both at the state and local level, where you figure out, what do we want to give up as a community in order to land a company, and is this trade-off beneficial or not? Mega sites, which is certifying 400+ acres of land for future industrial development, as well as other trainings. So for example, we have one called the Developers Dialogue coming up on December 8th. And we have brought in a couple private entities on the development side to talk about what does it really take to get a project off the ground, and what is, what's feasible, what's not feasible, where is your risk, where on the city side can they potentially make it easier for you to develop, and on the developer side, how can you better communicate those needs, and vice versa. So these trainings are available to the public. They are statewide. We now have them all virtually, and I'd be happy to pass along additional information, or if you Google EDC Utah community strategy trainings, they will definitely come up.
All right, before I dive into know the customer, the Spanish Springs Industrial Park is going to be located at 2700 North Main Street in Spanish Fork. And that is going to be a 906, I can't say words, I'm sorry, a 900,000 square foot industrial park. So that is what it's proposed to be at right now. The developer is looking to build light industrial manufacturing and warehouse buildings there. And I think the acreage is about 78 acres that they're looking to build out that park on. I can get you the detailed site brochure if you're interested to learn more, but that's one of the main industrial parcels and sites that we market to the companies that come through our office. With that, I wanted to talk a little bit about our Know the Customer initiative. So the Know the Customer initiative was at the request of the Governor's Office of Economic Development. They wanted to learn a little bit more about how the major employers statewide feel about doing business in Utah. And so this was a survey that is designed to engage with those key employers, learn a little bit about, their footprint here in the state, their operations here locally, and essentially understand what their opinions are of doing business here in Utah. This is in an effort to, get some data-driven data-driven information from these businesses on how Utah can work on improving our business climate and ultimately leveraging the business climate for everybody involved. This is primarily geared towards large employers throughout the state. And one of our main goals with this is to also understand some project opportunities and some retention opportunities. There's a lot of these projects that are growing really rapidly that may feel encouraged to grow outside of the state. And so we want to make sure that these companies feel confident and comfortable growing here in Utah, rather than taking those jobs and that investment somewhere else. And so this is also a really great opportunity for us to catch those flight risks and make sure that they understand that they're more than welcome here in the Utah. And so we also are going to take this data and help it inform policy decisions moving forward to make sure that Utah can stay competitive and make sure that the businesses here can continue to thrive here. We rely, again, heavily on our community partners to identify businesses that are growing really rapidly, businesses that have some significant employment needs, or businesses that are really key employers in those communities. We would love to get to know them more. We would love to understand where they're at and get their feedback on what it is doing business in Utah is like. This is totally kept confidential, and we work hard to make sure that these companies feel encouraged to be candid in their responses. And so we don't share any of their responses publicly, but we do share the data in aggregate to, as I mentioned, be able to churn out some business-friendly policy and really understand them a little bit better. These are a couple of the businesses that I found on our list. So far we've done about 100 interviews so far. We are looking to do about 100 more before the end of the fiscal year. And so we're really aggressively trying to push this program and learn more from the businesses here. I think the one that we did recently was with Little Giant Ladder Systems in Springville. It was a great opportunity for us to learn a little bit more about their business. But if you know of any specific companies, major employers within your community that would be interested in participating in this program and giving us some feedback, we'd love to set up an interview. We can do them virtually, and they take about an hour to 45 minutes to run through those questions. And so if you have any businesses that you think would be good candidates for this program, we'd love to interview them. So please reach out.
I think that pretty much wraps us up. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them either now or please contact us at a later date. I know that EDC Utah is geared towards more corporate recruitment, larger businesses, but at the same time, we often act as a facilitator, both intentionally and unintentionally. So if you do have questions about, who can I talk to about this issue, or, who in the legislature is working on this issue, we have a ton of connections there and would be happy to facilitate any of those introductions.
I have a question for you. Is Kem Gardner Institute put out their economic region report the other day, yesterday or the day before, something like that. It's now based on different from like Association of Governments. It's a different map, and because we're in Utah County, we're lumped together with Greater Salt Lake, which goes all the way to the northern border and to the western border. I mean, it's a really large area, but we find, I think for at least our smaller businesses, we get a lot of people coming from either Juab County, south of us in that new region, or from the Price region, Carbon County region. So how do you think this model impacts us in terms of, the growth of South Utah County, even though we're technically now in the Greater Salt Lake area? And also give me your opinions. We have a few people on here who who are interested, but it was based on transportation models. And then one of the other key elements was healthcare. And now we have multiple healthcare facilities in our area. We have a new hospital coming in Spanish Fork, as well as Aaron's with Canyon View. We have Revere Health. We have some IC, an increase in medical. And how does that tie into then economic development, having those medical facilities?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I actually just finished reading that report this morning, so it's top of mind. I think I was very interested to see that they use those commuting patterns as well as healthcare, since they do contribute to economic development and to planning, but they aren't necessarily very specific to that, if that makes sense. It's kind of a general assumption. And I do think with the map that they have currently outlined, this is my own personal input on it, that there are, sort of like with you guys, where you're on the edge of Utah County, not quite on the edge, but you're much closer to Joab County than you are to Salt Lake County necessarily. And maybe your economy suits Joab County better. It is a little bit awkward to group you into the greater Salt Lake metropolitan area. So I think that with the new governor coming in, there's been a lot of talk of, here's this report that the Gardner Policy Institute has put out, but I have a friend there who is one of their senior research managers. And he's talked a lot about how do we analyze this so we can compare more of apples to apples, more of like, what is their economy based on? So in Spanish Fork, where there's a little bit of manufacturing, not a ton of tourism, does that really make sense to attach it to the rest of Utah County, which is very tech heavy and also tourism heavy? Same thing with Carbon and Emory. Should we compare them to Grand County, which is very tourism heavy, or should we keep them on their own because they are so manufacturing and mining and industrial heavy? So I think there will be a little bit of a shift there with the incoming governor, as well as the potential changes to the governor's office of economic development. And I think that those changes would shift how they approach economic development in those areas, if that makes sense. And, with the map that they put out and how different it is from the AOGs, I am a little bit curious how the AOGs are even going to react to that, or how they'll approach planning from, it doesn't quite line up with their boundaries as well. I don't know if that answers your question, but.
Yeah, it's because I kind of had the same thought process. For those of you who don't know, AOG, Association of Government. So all of the mayors of the counties that are in each of these regions get together and they help plan with Association of Government, for us with MAG, transportation, other things that impact not only housing, but development, economic development, et cetera. And so having two different districts that don't necessarily align might be harder for those conversations to happen. But at the same time, I just thought that it was interesting overall what the metrics were that they used to determine where economic development would take place. And as both of you are in strategy and in the business planning, I thought that obviously transportation is something that's key. We use Highway 6. It's no shock that Canyon Creek is so successful coming down and out of Highway 6. We also see that Payson and Spanish Fork along the freeway are growing from Joab County coming up. But for Aaron, realizing what the impact to the healthcare system is on determining those patterns. And I just thought it was an interesting study.
Yeah, definitely.
One question that I have is, do you see a lot of movement from your population to the counties south of you for work?
I think we're seeing
some,
more,
but most of it I think goes north.
Okay.
I think that there are going south. Housing has boomed going south. And so maybe the economic development hasn't caught up to the housing market. So there are more and more people that are moving to Santaquin. That area is really booming. Parts of Payson are really booming, but the jobs are still north.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask a little bit so I can better understand how you can help us as well as how we can help you. So in my specific situation, we're a business of about 200 employees and we've got locations throughout South Utah County. and we're looking at expanding as the population continues to grow. And so, you know, specifically, we've got a lot of offices, but they're all on the east side of the freeway. And we see the potential growth and development on the west side of the freeway with all of that vacant land. So we're saying to ourselves, when will we decide that it's time to build an office in Benjamin or Lakeshore or Palmyra or these other smaller communities? And where would be the ideal location to put this? How could EDC Utah potentially help us in that process, as opposed to an outside company from New York or something coming brand new to Utah?
I think you can certainly leverage some of our research assets that we have here. We can help provide you some demographic information that can really help you identify a smart location for where you need to be. Also, you know, we have a lot of really fantastic contacts within the private sector that we'd be happy to leverage. So that includes construction companies and real estate brokers and lawyers that deal with land and title. We also have lawyers that deal with employee experience as well. And so, you know, leverage our network as well. You know, we have a wide variety of business services that are invested in the growth of Utah, and we'd be happy to make some connections there as well, to make sure that you have all the resources that you need in order to expand. And as Catherine mentioned, you know, with this new administration, you know, Utah already had a very robust focus on rural development, but I think that's only going to expand and it's only going to grow. And so there may be some opportunities for incentives or grant programs that you can leverage as well as you see your business grow. So we'd be happy to point you in the right direction in terms of helping guide that process as you continue to expand.
Yeah.
Are there fees for using your services, or are you based off of grants in your funding?
We are a private nonprofit. And so all of our funding comes from our investment groups as well as from our state contract. And so you can reach out to us for any inquiry, and we'll do our best to leverage our network and to help support you in any way that we can. If a partnership with EDC Utah seems to be beneficial for the chamber, for example, we can get you some more details, some more information on what that could look like. You know, we have a wide variety of investment levels that you can participate in if it makes sense for the chamber to join in. But again, you know, we'd love to just make it a mutually beneficial partnership. But, you know, for an individual business here in the state that needs some assistance, that needs some support, feel free to reach out. And there's absolutely no charge for utilizing our network and our expertise.
Yep. So Stephanie, with that, then the partnership that the city has, is there any way for the chamber to utilize it through the city? Or do you have to have our own separate connection?
I would say both yes and no. It's a little bit complicated. So with the city, they do have a membership with EDC Utah, and they are provided with all of our services for that. And you can definitely technically piggyback off of that. However, it means for like events or things like that, the invite has to come through the city, or, you know, only the city can attend events, whereas the chamber couldn't, but you could still utilize our resources by asking Dave Anderson of the city for those connections. So both yes and no. Otherwise, you can join. The chamber would technically fall under our private sector membership. And there's different investment levels from, you know, very basic to very extreme. And with that, you pretty much pay for whatever you think your whatever your investment level really needs to be. So some of our investors are like Zions Bank, and they pay a ton because they want to be connected to anyone who's in the economic development world, as well as any potential project coming in. So any new company, they want that immediate connection. Whereas other people like the chambers, They want to know what potential companies are moving into Utah, and they want to be able to connect to them, but it doesn't make sense for them to contribute a large amount of their budget towards that. So the chamber can technically have its own separate membership, but it's not completely necessary, if that makes sense.
Yeah, to Catherine's point, I think it depends on, your level of need, what makes the most sense for the chamber. Another reason why people invest is just to network with the business community here in the state and to be able to leverage those connections and those contacts. So when needs arise, you can lean on the support from from that community. And so if you'd like to get more involved within that business community from the state at large, I think it's a really great opportunity to leverage those contacts and those connections.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other questions for today? If not, Stephanie and Catherine, thank you so much for being with us. It's great to know what's happening in our area, what our city is doing. I mean, we speak with Dave Anderson frequently and he gives us updates, but it's nice to know what the process is of going about this and knowing that you're there as a resource, and hopefully Aaron can connect with you and make something good happen for his company.
Yeah.
With that, and I do have your slideshow that I will be giving to Heather, our executive director, in case anyone wants to go back and look through those.
Awesome.
Okay, thank you so much for being here, and